Hello, my name is Jaime Cervantes, and I am a senior software engineer at Niantic. And today we're going to talk about shared augmented reality experiences. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about my personal journey. And I'm not a game developer. My background is more in applied machine learning and robotics. And my air journey really started when I joined NASA a few years ago. And one of my first jobs was to work in 3D mapping and robotics. You can see on the pictures, this robot is called Nanook, and on the front section of the robot, you can see a LiDAR. And we sent this robot to the Arctic to use the LiDAR to generate 3D composite maps for planetary exploration. One of my favorite experiences at NASA was chasing hurricanes, and we literally flew these high altitude aircraft on top of hurricanes, and we can actually see 3D visualizations and cross sections of the hurricanes in real time. And a lot of this work is related to geolocated data. So the question is, how do I go from NASA to working in AR at Niantic? And you think about it, a lot of these technologies are really related to augmented reality, and really the technology behind AR comes from the world of robotics and has been around for more than a decade. So to me, the question is, how do you take this technology and transfer this technology to your devices? How do you put this technology in a box and get it to run in real time on your phones to be able to create games and narratives? So to answer this question, I moved to the Bay Area in 2017, to focus on real-world applications of computer vision and machine learning on mobile devices. And when I moved to the Bay Area, I was fortunate to be able to join this company called Asia Reality at a very early stage. It was, back then it was a startup with 6 people. And, after I joined, we were acquired by Niantic. And, the goal of this acquisition was to create an AR platform. So what does it take to create a platform for shared AR experiences? And it's a very difficult problem. There's a lot of challenges. One of the biggest challenges is that it has to work in real time on mobile devices at 30 to 60 frames per second. We need to support many platforms. So, we need to support Android and iPhone devices. Also, there's very complex computer vision and machine learning algorithms that had to work on monocular cameras. Another important challenge is high-speed networking for shared experiences. Scalability is also important in terms of the service layer. There's also very unique UX challenges, and we need to support occlusions and semantic capabilities for real immersive experiences. And finally, the technology has to work in a wide range of scenes, right? From indoor scenes, outdoor scenes, you name it. So to tackle these challenges, I like to think of 4 main areas. The first one is computer vision and machine learning, and this is where I come in. And this includes simultaneous localization and mapping, also known as SLAM, relocalization, mapping, and also there's a very important geometry component. The second one is the client side, and this includes exposing this technology to a Unity API, and also streaming architectures, real-time architectures. The third area is the cloud, and this includes scalability, storage, and messaging, and also geolocation queries. And the last one is game development, and this includes working with technical artists to create novel game mechanics. So once you have these 4 areas, one thing that is very important to mention is even more importantly, we need to create a feedback loop, between these 4 components. We need to create the synergy between the different components and the different teams. And in a way, the shared AR is going to be the synthesis of these four components. So, the result of these efforts is the Niantic real-world platform. And this platform is powering the AR experiences in games like Pokemon Go and Harry Potter's Wizards Unite. And so we have an AR platform. Now what? So what's next? What are we going to do with it? And you think about it, we already support the multiplayer experiences. We have occlusions and contextual awareness. We also have spatial capabilities, and there is also a social component, a social graph. So what are we going to do with this? And to me, one of the important, one of the important things is going to be amazing game mechanics. I think you as game developers are going to be working on this in the near future, and so we have been working on some of these ourselves at Niantic, and I'm going to give you a few examples of this. So the first one is the Pokemon Go body feature, and this was released in December of 2019, and it's very interesting to see the players interacting with their Pokemon bodies. You go to Twitter and you look at the pictures and the posts that they make. They refer to their Pokemon bodies as their friends. So in times of COVID, for example, you can think of the implications of this in the mental health of the players. So no, there's a lot of interesting questions there. So the second example is Stonehenge. This is a multiplayer puzzle. And the way I think of this is kind of like, you ever play Zelda? You go into a dungeon and there's puzzles on these dungeons. It's kind of like the same, but in the real world. And the last one, my favorite one, is Neon. It's a multiplayer laser tag. And it's very, when you look at the video of this this game, it's impossible to convey how immersive this is, right? When you're playing with your friends and the opponent hits you with the laser, you're going to see the screen with it's going to turn into the color of the laser of your opponent, and it's also going to vibrate, and the haptic feedback combined with the sound element combined with the visual element, it turns this into a very immersive experience. So I really think we're just getting started. And in my opinion, what's coming up next in augmented reality, I think a big one for sure is going to be new applications. I think games are just a start. I think of applications in education, for example. I love graphic design and architecture, and I really think, what are the applications in the creative space? I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these. Also, there's going to be amazing game mechanics. I think of the game Portal, for example. What is that mechanic but in AR? We also mentioned this before, but I think immersive haptics and sound are going to be super important. I think of a horror game, for example, and think about a player in a room, in a dark room, right? And even without the visual, experience, you only have haptics and sound. How visceral can this experience be, right? It could be very, very immersive. Also, we're going to have persistent experiences. I think this is an important one, where you're going to be able to go into a room, leave like an object or 3D asset on the room, and then come back the next day and you're going to see the 3D asset in the same place. There's also going to be improved depth sensors. I think we're already seeing LiDAR sensors on the new iPads. And finally, there's going to be a really interesting interaction between phones and headsets. I think these are not mutually exclusive. They're going to be more complementary. So with this, that's it. Thank you very much. Feel free to reach out on Twitter, and we are hiring. So if you're interested, go to this website and apply. Thank you.